Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to talk about infection. I find that it's a very underrated ability and a lot of people don't always understand how it works, and I think it's actually a pretty effective skill. It is a little slow, but it can be effective on offense or defense depending on who you're fighting. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel so you get more information about the game and kind of understand a bit of how I approach the game and the strategy that I use. So now on to infection. So it works where when infection is applied to a toon, they have a specific number of turns to recover a specified total amount of HP before the duration of infection expires, otherwise the toon is automatically killed. So infection just ignores any type of buffs or debuffs when the infected target is killed, and I find that to be really useful. So it's like nothing like tenacity or dexterity will be able to stop it if they're not able to heal themselves. Heal over time effects can be pretty effective for toons, especially if it's 50% for 2 or 3 turns, because that can be 100% or 150% healing effect. And with most toons only having a low, like 35% healing or similar, it's very difficult for someone to recover from infection without having a recover all penalty ability. And just to clear things up, so if a toon has 100% of their HP and then they're infected for 3 turns and they're left at 100% HP, so if a toon uses a heal all, say 200% over time, even though that character is at 100% HP, it's 200% that's actually, quote, recovered, because it's potentially recovered. So you can't just stall out the toon by not attacking them and assuming if a character uses a healing factor to try and get rid of infection that it won't go to them, because it will. Now, there is a simple way to, of course, prevent any healing, and that's by applying 100% heal reduction. So even if there's a multi-turn healing effect in play, as long as 100% heal reduction or 75% is in play as well, then it reduces the amount of HP that character will actually recover, and it's more likely that they will die from infection. And because infection kills the character, it doesn't grant any AP from the damage. It is not effective against walkers. It also doesn't work against faction assault bosses like Negan. Now, there's only a couple toons that have infection. One of them is daze, who is an S-class toon. As a 6-star, she also has infection on her active skill. It's a turn 2 active skill, which can be pretty effective on offense or defense. It's 150% infection to an enemy for 3 turns. So that means before 3 turns are up, the character that is inflicted with infection must recover 150% of their HP, otherwise they will die. So for instance, for daze, that would be 2,666 HP with an additional 1,333 HP that needs to be recovered before 3 turns are up. Otherwise, that character would automatically be dead. Now, as an S-class toon, her infection becomes a bit stronger, where it needs 200% of healing over 3 turns to occur to a toon that's inflicted with infection, otherwise they die then. I think she's a decent offensive and defensive toon. I've seen her on a defensive team before, and applying that infection on turn 2 really makes you have to attack fast and be very efficient with your attacks, because otherwise you might end up losing a valuable asset to your attack team. And you might think that by turn 5 the match should be over, but with a lot of these tanky defenses now, it's a lot more difficult to take defenses out in 3 to 5 turns, especially if you have a lot of S-class toons on the defensive team. Now, one toon that has infection that many of you ended up getting because of what is now called Jones Gate is Mr. Jones. And I think he is a very underrated character, but his rush is also somewhat flawed. So his rush is pretty decent. It deals 3 attacks of 200% damage, so 600% total to one enemy. So the issue with Mr. Jones' rush is that crosshairs ends up resolving itself before infection. So that means if a toon dies from infection, they will not become decapitated from crosshairs. So really, you do want crosshairs to be 4 turns, because otherwise with it being 3 turns, it means you have to kill the toon before infection resolves itself, in order to decapitate them, which is pretty unfortunate because you're kind of relying on that crosshairs on the team. Even with this, I guess you would call it an error on his rush. He's still quite a good toon because of his confounding ability. If you give him a double attack weapon, it means on his rush he can apply 3 to 6 attacks, and each of them have a chance of confusing the enemy because of the confounding ability. Personally, I would love if they fixed Mr. Jones so that his crosshairs lasted longer, so that if a toon did die from infection, then they would be decapitated, but I don't see this happening only because of the Jones gate that occurred, and a number of players, including myself, ended up getting him because of this bug that they had. So here's just some film of me using Mr. Jones in a match, and I'm trying to get him to trigger his infection, and to be honest, it's actually kind of difficult. So if you mod Mr. Jones the way that I've modded him, he actually hits really hard, especially when he rushes. I find he really only applies infection when it's on a very tanky toon, or if he ends up getting stunned or confused or otherwise impeded on his attack. Right here he was able just to take out Mia, confuse her, and decapitate with crosshairs. And now when we move into the realm of more tanky toons, just because there's more S-class here, Mr. Jones's infection will actually come into play, and it's kind of a nice effect to use because you can kind of just leave that toon, and as long as you control the rest of them or kill them, then you really have no worries with knowing when that toon is going to die. Like, this team only has the one healer being Pete, so if you control Pete and prevent him from healing after applying infection, then you're in a fairly safe position to kill almost any toon that you want. I would also like to add that Mr. Jones is a very effective toon at controlling the enemy because he has an active skill that can daze multiple enemies, so that prevents active skills from being able to be used, which of course can be super helpful because some toons have amazing active skills that can recover from a lot of different penalties. Like Raven, she can prevent your toons from gaining AP on anyone except for her. There's just a variety of different active skills that can cause mayhem to your team. Right here I kind of just picked an open target, which was Angel, and unfortunately she ended up rushing just because a confused toon attacked her. Now the infection ability is soon going to take place, and you'll see Angel just hit the deck and die right away, which means I just have Mercer and Raven to deal with last. Now with Raven rushing, it means that I can't gain AP on any other toon except for her, but she also has an AP down weapon of minus 40 AP if you end up attacking her, unless she's disarmed. But this was just a basic video to kind of show you how infection works and how it takes a while in order to be effective. And now in this match, I'm facing a team that has infection on defense. So I just want to show you kind of how things can play out, because this team that I'm facing right now is a bit tankier. If I hadn't dazed Raven, then I would be stuck not gaining any AP when making my attacks. Right now I did use my Mr. Jones daze active skill, just so that I would have a bit more control over the enemy. As you see, Princess is a tank, and she was able to take out 2 toons with her rush because of that 116% attack buff, which is really effective. So if Princess was an S-class, she would have done more damage. This team that I'm facing right now, the Pete is very tanky, so applying infection to him will be very effective in my opinion. The reason why Dayu did not use her active skill infection is because Mr. Jones was able to daze her, and that was actually pretty lucky. He dazes, I believe, 3 toons, and it just happened to pick her as one of the options. And in the next video clip, you're going to see how Dayu actually uses her infection and how it puts a turn limit on my attack team. Now, this is not my normal attack team. It's only a way so I can show you how infection works and its effectiveness. I would definitely say from testing that Dayu is a much more effective infection toon than Mr. Jones. As I mentioned before, because Mr. Jones can make these multiple attacks and I have him crit set, because his confounding ability relies on critical hits anyway, and with a double attack weapon, he has the chance to make up to 6 attacks when he rushes. It's pretty likely that he's going to kill most red toons as long as they're not a tanky S-class toon, for instance. So he can be super effective at this. Right now, I'm in a bit of a situation where Mr. Jones has infection on him, and I have no toon other than Douglas who can heal, but his heal is pretty minor, so I don't expect my Mr. Jones to be able to live. And infection on an active skill is a lot more useful because there are so many ways to stop a toon from rushing, and there are less ways to stop a toon from using their active skill, because even if they're impaired or AP drained, it still means they can use their active skill and be very effective. So it's just a solid way at taking out a tanky toon indirectly, because the toon could have, say, 10,000 HP and very high defense, and infection is able just to eat all the way through that and finish the toon off. Now here I'm in a lot of trouble and I don't expect to win this match. The infection took out one of my characters, and then of course Priya lead ended up dying early on. So there's really no chance of my team beating this team. I could come close only because I have infection on Pete. So Pete's going to die eventually, but I do need to take out Henyan as well as Dayu. Magna's not a big deal because she's a shield and she doesn't apply much damage. So it's really about control here. I might be able to pull it off just by luck. But if this was a war match or something, I definitely would have fleed early on. Like even right now, my Douglas has 150% infection. So this match is over for me. I'm just going to flee it now. I have a timer up and it's 2 versus 3. Well, now 1 versus 3. So I think one of the next toons I will be working towards is Dayu. I think she's a very effective toon. I like her infection and her bleed applications, both with her rush as well as with her specialist skill. So anyway guys, thanks again for watching and listening to my video. Big shout out to GR. Thank you for everything you've done for the community, and best of luck moving forward.